So please welcome to the stage from Terrifier and Terrifier 2, Damien Leone and David Howard Thornton. Guys. All right, have a seat. So I hope this is very...
I almost got raped.
We set it up that way. All right, folks, so I always like to have a very informal kind of a setup. I have some questions that I'm going to ask these guys. They're going to talk, but at any time, anyone has a question, please put up your hand. I will get to you. And then, of course, at the end, we'll take the rest of your questions. So I hope everybody enjoys. So, guys, how's the show been for you so far?
Fantastic. Great being back.
Yeah.
What
been
he
awesome.
said.
These people are lovely. So nice meeting you guys.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming out. Y'all so
right.
quiet.
It's early. It's
Yeah, we'll perk it up a bit.
Yeah.
All right. So my first question is, and I think I might have asked you this the first time we spoke, when the original Terrifier hit, was it beyond your wildest expectations about how it has taken off in the horror community?
What do you? Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, like, it's definitely beyond our wildest expectations because, like, we were just a low-budget independent film, and it was, you know how the Hollywood engine is and stuff like that. So we're competing against like it, and all these big, huge movies coming out there, and like, yeah, look at us. Who knows if anybody's gonna see us except for like the fans from the original All Hallows Eve, and it blew us away. It just blew us like, and it wasn't because we had like the press that all these other movies were getting, you know, by mainstream media and stuff like that. It was the fans that blew the film up. It was just everybody posting about it and like, oh my God, I just saw this movie. You got to go see this, and you know, just spread. And also like sites like Bloody Disgusting, which is now helping us put out this movie for everybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's the horror sites and the horror fans that really made this movie what it is.
Yeah, we knew we had something special with art, but you don't know to what level. We really believed in it. We believed in what we were doing. We gave it our all making Terrifier. It was a really tough shoot, and we were doing some really crazy things. And I always say it wasn't Terrifier at the time, so we're just making this weird, crazy, sadistic killer clown movie, and he's walking around wearing this woman's skin on his body with a wig. You know? People are like, what are we doing? You know, like it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. You question, oh my God. But once it came out, a lot in that yeah. But once it hit Netflix, and then we just started hearing people say, you know, I'm scrolling through Netflix and I see this clown, and it was striking, and I just had to see. I didn't know anything about this movie, but I saw his face. I had to check it out. Like, I heard that again. We hear it all the time, and that's how so many people discovered the movie. So we knew we had something, but where it was going to go, we couldn't expect it. And seeing tattoos all the time and all this beautiful custom artwork and everything like that, it's the greatest thing imaginable. It's so surreal.
So I still remember when we were filming part 1, and one of our producers, Larry, we were filming it at his auto shop. And it was his first time seeing me in the costume, and he walks in, he's like, oh, wow, that is a look. He said, that is something, you might not believe me right now, but that is going to be something people latch onto. That is iconic. Trust me. And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, no, trust me. This is going to go somewhere. This is going to catch people just because of the look of the clown. And he was right, So
let's talk about that a little bit, because at the time and a little bit before that, there was kind of a slew of killer clown movies, especially in the indie world, and even in real life. All of a sudden, this whole creepy clown thing became a thing. So, tell us about and tell the fans what went into the design of Art the Clown, because it is iconic, it is different, and it is freaking scary. Yeah. So. Let's tell us a little about that.
I say it all the time. I have to give all the thanks in the world to the Tim Curry Pennywise, because that was the clown that I knew of the most at the time, and he is still arguably the king of all the killer clowns. So I didn't want to go anywhere near him I did not want art to be colorful. I didn't want him to have hair. I didn't want him to speak just as far away as I could go. So a lot of it came down to that. And then as far as his face, when I sculpted it, I wanted him to look sort of classic devilish, with just like the pointed features, the pointed nose, the chin, and even like the comic book Joker was a big inspiration for the way I wanted him to look. Very exaggerated features, but just simplistic. I like just the black and white. Everything about art is just very simple but effective. So yeah, that was really what it came down to.
Interesting. Very cool. Let's also talk about, so it's one thing to have a look like that and come up with a look, but the person under the makeup is equally as important, in my opinion anyway. So tell us about the audition process. How in the world did you find this guy?
Most of you know that originally Art the Clown was played by my friend Mike Gianelli, who was not an actor, but he just got stuck doing this because he was my buddy who I would just put all makeup on, and I would just test out makeup effects on him, and I had made my short film, and I said, dude, I'm gonna need this clown character. He doesn't speak, don't worry, you don't have to act. I mean, you just gotta sit there, smile, and just do all this weird shit. I'm like, you could definitely do it. And then it just started taking off, and we kept making more short films, and he was just getting stuck having to keep playing this part. And then when it came time to shoot Terrifier, years had gone by, you know, we hadn't done it in a while, and he was gaining weight, but he's not an actor. And I said, you know, if we're gonna do this, you know, I need you to slim down, because I always want Art to be very skinny. And then he was gonna do it, and then like a couple of days later, he texted me and he said, man, I really don't think I can go through all this and spend all those hours in the makeup. I'm not an actor, and it's not for me. So I said, all right, no problem, man. And then it was scary, because then Art worked. I mean, like everything he was in, people said, Art the Clown is sick, sure. He's effective, you know, keep making more things. So I'm like, now we got to start from scratch. But starting from scratch, now I knew I always, if I could have my choice, I would have Art be taller and skinnier, because to me that's a lot creepier. So that's the first thing I was looking for in this audition. And it was just me and my partner, Phil. And I'd say about 5 or 6 people auditioned. I think Dave was like the 6th person to come in the room. And as soon as he walked in, right, I see that, and I see this big smile, and I'm like, this guy right off the bat, I'm like, that's what I'm looking for, physically. And then he didn't even know what he was there to do. I don't even know if he had sides. And
I had no sides.
Yeah. And I said, he just knew, I think it was for a killer clown, right?
Yeah.
And I said, you're a silent clown, and I want you to act like you're decapitating somebody and having a really good time doing it. And that was it. And then he just flipped this switch, and just, you could see the audition, and it's magical. And he's doing all this really just theatrical, animated, you know, like Grinch and all this kind of Jim Carrey stuff. You can see all this stuff, but he's having so much fun and taking the head and cutting it off and everything and loving it. And then like when he's done, he tastes the blood, and then he's like, and then he picks up a salt shaker and does it again and licks it, and then skips out of the room. And the whole time I'm nudging my producer, and we're laughing and just like loving this, right? And he seemed so nice and everything, and it was great. And then when he walked out of the room, I'm like, well, what else are we really looking for? I'm like, do we need to keep seeing people? I said, have this guy come to the apartment, like, let's throw the prosthetic on and have him do this again. But I think we're good. So that was it. I mean, 6 people. I didn't have to scour the earth. I mean, he came in. It was sort of serendipitous. I said, let's fucking go with this guy. And here he is.
So, David, how did you even, did you post a casting call? Like, how did you even find out about it?
It was through Actors Access,
okay.
A website for actors and stuff like that. And I had seen All Hallows Eve before, and so I knew the character. And so I was like, oh my God, yes. And like, because when I saw All Hallows Eve, I looked at the character, like, oh my, there's so much potential for this character. I'm like, he's like an evil Mr. Bean. And I've always wanted to play a Mr. Bean-like character, one of those silent, mischievous characters. I'm like, oh my God, this would be such a fun thing to do. And I had never done film work besides being an extra from time to time. And I really wanted, because I was, you know, a stage actor and voiceover actor, and I really wanted to dip my feet into the film world, and it just worked out. And it's like, what a way to dip your feet in.
Hell yeah. So you used the word, Damien, you used the word icon, and Art the Clown kind of took off right away. I mean, we immediately...
I think he used that word. I don't know, that word scares
me sometimes. One of you did.
Other people have used it, I just copied them.
And right away, we started seeing the Art the Clown tattoos and the cosplays and stuff. What do you feel it is that makes a horror icon?
Ooh. I think the look is super important. I think all the classic characters that we love, they have a really striking look. And that's kind of where I come from, just doing special makeup effects and being an artist growing up and collecting comic books. I'd rather look at the comic book. I always just like flip through the pages rather than reading the comic book. I loved striking images. But then once you have that, then you have to flesh out the character and you have to start making him unique and giving him some sort of personality. And Art has a really cool personality. I mean, it's so layered and he's so human. I think that's what people really grab onto. He's like very charismatic, but he does things that other killers don't do that are so like sort of human and mundane. But when you see him do it, you're like, oh my God, it's like kind of riveting. And then you have to deliver on the kills. It's like you have to walk the walk at some point, and that's one thing I wanted to do, and go as far as we could, as violent as we could, and have him do things that you don't typically see other killers do in movies.
Any thoughts? Not if I can help.
No. What was the question again?
What makes art so effective?
Oh gosh, yeah. I think a lot of it also comes down to just the personality. It's just like it's the charisma. I mean, even silent characters like Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees, there's a certain charisma that goes behind just the actions, their body language and stuff like that. And that's what I kind of like about Art. He's like a blend of those silent characters and also those kind of comedic characters like Freddy and Chucky, and it's like that magical blend there just works so well because I'm able to be silent, but I with the makeup that I wear, I'm able to be very expressive as well, which I was very happy with. Like when I did the makeup test, I spent like about 30 minutes in a bathroom making faces, and they probably thought I had just eaten something really bad or something like that. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, but and I realized it really worked though when we're doing that because they had ordered pizza. And the delivery guy shows up, and they're like, "Okay, this is your final audition. Answer the door as Art."
Oh, that is great.
In middle of daytime on Staten Island, and I open the door, and the guy's just like, "No." And I was like, gave him the money and all that, and just waved at him. He was just like, No, what the? He just walks off. And then I went out the yard, and like our producer's neighbors were outside, and they had kids out there, and I was just like,
yeah, one of them was terrified.
Yeah, yeah. I think the mom got really ticked off and stuff like. But it's in broad daylight, so if you can
August, so
yeah, if you can scare people in broad daylight like that, then you're golden.
Oh, for sure.
So there you go.
So just a quick follow-up on that. So as far as Art's personality and, you know, the mannerisms and the way he moves and the facial expressions, how much of that is purely you and how much of it was sort of scripted and where Damien, you said, okay, this is how we want Art to behave. So some of that has to come from inside you somewhere, which I find completely terrifying. But so just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's written, and I do write a lot of, like, I know Art's humor, like, so, I mean, aside from doing all the horror, I do have a dark sense of humor, and I could write his jokes, like the big things, but really, like, a perfect example of when Dave really brings his A game to it is, like, in the pizzeria scene in part 1, when you have a scene where he's making all those faces at Tara and Dawn. So, you know, I know moments where I want him to do like that really big classic Art the Smile Clown that's on like the poster. And there's like one other look where they turn and he's kind of just like staring at them like that. Like I had like those two looks, but then when it's like all the other like really goofy, you could tell the difference when Dave's doing these really like that kind of thing and all that kind of thing, like picking his nose and all that stuff. Like, so I just say, all right, Dave, now go crazy. And I just let the camera roll and we'll do a bunch of takes where he just goes off. And now I have all these wonderful things to play with in the editing room. And I can mold Art the Clown, see if I want to make him more frightening or really like a little dip our toes, a little more of a cartoony area. But he brought that cartoony, this is what I say now. I say, Mike Gianelli might as well have been just a guy dressed as a clown. Dave made Art the Clown an actual clown. And when we filmed that pizzeria scene, I think up until then, we only shot a couple of scenes where Art's just walking down the street. He stops, he sees the girls, he smiles. Like nothing crazy yet, all right? Just pretty straightforward. When we shot the pizzeria scene and he gave Jenna the ring, And then he got up and walked to the bathroom. Dave just got up really like Bugs Bunny almost and skipped away. And in my head, when I'm watching at the monitor, I'm like, oh boy, I'm like, that's like really, like I've never had Art be that clowny before. And then like immediately I'm like, but it's fucking Art the Clown. I'm like, he should be a clown. And now I have this guy who's very animated, very theatrical. He's so natural doing that. I said, let's start injecting that into it. So now every time, in between every move, if Dave's doing this and that, I mean, that's all Dave. I mean, so it's a good, beautiful relationship.
There's a lot of back and forth between us, and because like there are so many times where I'm just flat out asking, like, what kind of face do you want for this right now? Do you want like the serious face? Do you want the big eyes, big smile? And we have like a whole lingo between the two of us. Like other people have been like, what are they talking about? And I know exactly what he says. Like, eyes this, mouth this. I'm like, cool. And I've also learned to really trust his vision on things, because there's like the one scene where I'm just standing there frozen and just doing that face, and I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I'm like, how is this scary? And he's like, no, trust me. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay. And then I see the play, because I'm in my head. I don't know really what I look like all the time. So I'm just like, I'm just in my own head. And then I see the playback of it, especially how he edited it. I'm like, oh, I see what you're going for now. Okay, that is freaky. But it was like, just seeing it, especially on paper, he just stands there like his mouth will go, I'm like, what? But it says he knows what really creeps people out. He's so good at just knowing what scares people.
Well, and
there's also like happy accidents. Like one of my favorite things he did in part one was after Victoria slams the railroad spike into his foot at the end and runs away, and then he gives her the finger. So that wasn't scripted. I did not tell him to do that. The camera was still rolling. I think I even yelled cut, and Samantha was walking back into frame, and he just gave her the finger, and everybody laughed on set. I didn't think twice about it. And then like 2 months later, I'm editing the scene and looking at the raw footage, and I see him give her the finger, and I hear everybody laugh, and I'm like, that's not, I would never write that for Art the Clown. It's like so on the nose and so like trying to get a laugh, but it was so genuine because it wasn't scripted or anything. I said, you know what, I'm gonna put it in. And like that moment in that film, you could use that little piece of levity, and it's just like, after all that at that point in the film, he's like, just fuck you. You know what I mean? It just works so great. So, and a lot of things like that happen in part two as well that you're able to put in. So it's all about molding the performance in the editing room at the end of the day.
Oh, definitely. And movie history is replete with those kind of happy accidents, that then made it into the final film. So that's a great little anecdote.
There's one coming up in this clip that he came up with on the spot. He came up with this way to help us with a continuity error. It was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't want this to be one-sided. Do we have any audience questions yet? Do not be shy. I will not send Art the Clown after you later in your sleep.
I'm single, I'm a Sagittarius.
Right here in the front,
I
yes.
enjoyed long walks on the beach.
The scene with Kuya, when you approach her, when she took you, and of course you're holding her beloved baby.
Baby Emily.
Yes, and she asks if you've ever known a mother's touch, the reaction of her, and then letting her probably while you saw your film. Amazing. Was that written? Was that something that you did? And then I'm wondering if that leads to anything in the story as far as art's back. Although I guess you can't tell me that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was written, and that was the second most awkward, uncomfortable day on that entire shoot. That was another thing. People were like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. But like Puya was so great in that scene.
God,
I'm like, my God, her performance. I'm like, she actually almost made me tear up because I was getting into her performance, and I'm like,
well, she really started
dude,
crying.
don't cry. You're Art the Clown. It's like, you can't cry here. There's no crying in horror. So I was like, okay, tap down those feelings. It's like, God, because she was like just tearing up and crying. And I'm like, my God, you're so good. You're so good. Yeah, but it's like I always love that scene too, because it is a very freaky scene, and there's so many things you can read into things if you want to and stuff like that. Because I even asked him, it's like, okay, what is going on here? It's like, It's like, is she like actually reaching a part of him, some human part of him,
right.
or or is he just totally fucking with her? And that's how, we talked about that, and it's like, yeah, he's just totally fucking with her. Because Art's one of those guys, he can kind of read people. He can see what gets into people's head and how he can draw people into him. Because that's what's more fun for him. It's not just to just chase people. He likes to bring people in and mess with their heads and that, bring them in for the good kill that way. And that's what he was doing. Was like he recognized that part of her, that motherly side of her, and it's like, that's what's going to, because she was already afraid of him. And it's like, how can I get her to come to me? And that's what he did. And I think it's so great. It's just so twisted. It's so twisted. He's such a manipulative little bastard.
Well, it's cool to also misdirect the audience because, like you said, I mean, you've never seen up to that point in the movie any kind of vulnerability with Art the Clown, so you don't know what's happening. Like you said, is she reaching him? And then we cut out of that scene and how it leaves off. Like, yeah, she's holding him, caressing him. And then just the reveal that later on he's wearing her is one of the most horrifying things I could have come up with for myself. So
what is wrong with you, by the way?
That all started, by the way, I think when I was writing this at the time, my girlfriend at the time had said, I would love to see a scene where Art the Clown's wearing a wig. That was it. I was like, well, whatever. And then I'm like thinking of him with a wig on, and I'm like, he would look really creepy with a wig on. And then I was just going into Art's head, and I said, well, he wouldn't be wearing a wig, he'd be wearing a scalp. And then I was like, would he just stop? So clearly he took a scalp off a woman. I'm like, is that the worst thing he did to her? I'm like, he'd probably keep going. What else would he take? I said, well, maybe he'd start taking everything that's identifiably a woman, every part of her that's female. And then, but when I wrote it, I had it, this is a great testament to him. When I wrote it, I had it over his costume. And then as we're getting closer to shooting it, I was just thinking, that's not going to be as effective if he's got the skin over the costume. I said, but I want to take him out of the costume. I want to have him totally naked wearing this. And that was like a big deal because you never take a character out of their costume. You don't really see that. And so I'm like, that's going to be a big risk. And I called up Dave, and this is Dave's first movie. And I said, Dave, I'm thinking about doing this scene a little differently. I think it'll be a lot more effective if you play it naked. I'm like, how do you feel about that? He's like, okay.
I was like, are you sure people want to see my ass? I know our crew didn't.
But again, that is insane courage. Insane courage. And again, it's not like, oh, we're making Terrifier 2, people know about it, it's just like this weird, obscure killer clown movie. And for him to believe in it and jump in like that and do it and believe, have confidence in me or whatever and trust I knew what I was going to do, I mean, that's really amazing. And that's the best thing you could hope for, so.
I also looked at it because what Catherine was doing for her kill scene is she's really having to expose herself in such a vulnerable state. I'm like, if she can do that, I can do this. Because I was always very self-conscious about my body because I have the body of E.T. on a good day. So it's like... So I was like, okay, but I'm like, yeah, that is kind of freaky. That whole idea that the killer would be wearing the freshly flayed flesh. Oh, that's fun to say. That's good alliteration. But yeah, wearing that of his victim on his own naked body, that's just messed up. And most people don't realize it's not just the hair and the tatas that he's wearing, but also the vajayjay. So that's. Yeah, that's messed up, guys. That's messed up.
Yeah, that's a bit edgy.
Would you fuck me?
But he keeps the boots on.
Yeah, I keep the boot. That's what's so funny is coming, and I still had the big clown shoes on. And we did 2 different versions of this too, because we had the version you see, but we also did a version where I had Emily with me, and I came up with Emily suckling on my boobs. And then I was using Emily as a puppet to talk to me and tell me where Victoria was hiding, and I was doing a lot of puppetry with it, and that was...
It was great. But the only reason I didn't use it is because I just had this vision of him coming up the steps doing this weird thing with his hands, and I just, that image alone just was so much creepier to me than everything that he was doing with the doll. But the doll scene was so good, there could have been an alternate cut of it. So I don't know if I made the right decision, but I thought there was just something so freaky about the weird arms coming up the steps. Yeah, I should. I don't think, I definitely should. You should.
Well, that leads me to another question. Are there any other deleted scenes that did not make it into the final cut that may have been equally as memorable?
I think we did something. We did something where when Victoria's laughing after she mutilates Monica Brown, like she sees Art standing there laughing, and you don't know if he's really like just a vision in her head or something like that. We shot that, but we scrapped that. I don't think so. I think everything pretty much made it in.
That one bit with me in the car where Catherine screams and I scream back at her.
Oh, you could see that actually.
Yeah, you see that in the back. But I think you didn't, because I had the needle in my hand and you don't want to reveal the needle too early.
Maybe something.
Yeah, there's something there. But that's about it. Like basically everything we shot made it into the film.
Yeah, we added more stuff. Like our first screening, first rough cut, we didn't have the kill scene with the second exterminator where he does that decapitation and rips his head back. So I was like, this movie needs a little.
Because there definitely wasn't enough at that point.
One more kill in this movie. So I mean, it's a short 80. It's. Aside from, other than the 2-hour, 18-minute Terrifier 2 that's coming. But
all right, we will.
So not too many deleted scenes.
We will get to that shortly. Okay, any other audience questions before? Yes.
Yeah. Because I just think it gets stale. It gets, not to say I love seeing Leatherface, cut people up with a chainsaw. That doesn't get old. But I like when, like, Jason just keeps going and bringing out a new weapon. But I just didn't want him to have to keep searching for those weapons or worry about how am I going to write this in? How's he going to get his hands on that? So I said he'll just carry around everything. He'll just have this big, like, Santa Claus bag that he could pull anything out at any time and say it's literally his bag of tricks. So it's just very convenient. Cheap writing.
No, I have to say my favorite weapon of his is like the cat o' nine tails flail with all the blades on it, because it's what I think is really cool about it, and we kind of addressed it in the graphic novel, is like each of the ropes on there is not rope. That's the hair of his victims. Yeah.
Yeah, it's braids.
And I think that's that he uses that to make his weapon. So I really think of that as his weapon of choice. That's a very special weapon to him. It's his trophy weapon.
Cool.
And it's so messed up to hit people with that. I mean, like, oh my God. It's like, oof.
Even the prop hurts.
Yeah, the prop hurt. I discovered that in part 2. I was like, ooh, that stings a little bit. I was like, I'm so sorry. Especially Samantha, because like when we're doing part 1, I'm like, even though we used the rubber version of that, she was still getting hit by that thing. And she's like, it's okay. It gives me something to work with. I'm like, wow, you were into some stuff, girl. Because I'm like, God, we had some protective padding on her, but I mean, still, sometimes it misses the padding and you get hit and you're like, ah!
All right, so we'll segue into the sequel, but we are here obviously at a horror convention, right? Yeah, maybe. How crucial do you feel the con scene has been to the success of Terrifier?
Oh, huge. It's all, like he said it before, I feel like the fans, the horror community, just like bullied this movie into where it is, because nobody with any money or any marketing or any kind of push whatsoever did anything for this movie ever. It's only where it is because of the fans and because of word of mouth. And we love interacting with everybody, and just because we're horror fans. I mean, I grew up going to Chiller when I was 12 years old. My mother took me to meet Tom Savini, and now I'm sitting next to Savini and telling him that. It's like the craziest thing ever. So this is in my blood. I feel so at home at these, and I love if I could just give a piece of my horror soul back like that. That's like the greatest thing I could possibly do.
Awesome. David, what do you think?
Oh, same. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's the fans, like I said earlier, that have made this film what it is. I mean, literally part 2 is a movie by fans for fans. I mean, most of the funding for part 2 came from the fans, which is amazing. I'm like, we surpassed our goal of just $50,000 within like just 2 or 3 hours. And we made so much more of that off of that campaign. And every single one of those, every dime of that went into part 2. And we were very, very grateful to you all. And that's why we're so excited for you guys to finally see what we've been up to for all these years. Because, oh, my giddy aunt.
So you just brought up the crowdfunding, and I was going to ask you about that. So because I remember when that happened, you know, you posted your goal for part 2 and you blew it away in like seconds. Did that shock you, and where it wound up? How did that make you feel about the film?
Oh my God, it did, because it's like I said, when you just see these tattoos and you see everything, none of it really sinks in. And like, I downplay everything, but then when that happens, you're like, oh my God, maybe we really do have something special here. Like, I never like to say, oh, this is what it is, this is great, it's Art the Clown, you know, it's like the new thing. Like, that's never our attitude going in, but we're always surprised by like another level of something amazing happening. Like all this, like this big, like for us, this is like a huge theatrical release for Terrifier 2 that I never expected ever. Like 700 plus theaters, this movie's super long, it is unrated, like it's playing in like major theaters. And that hasn't happened since like fucking Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
It's like no joke. Like it's just, my buddy Steve Barton, most of you know him, like he championed this movie. He's a producer, but he's like, this movie feels like it's like not being released, it's escaping. He's like, this movie should not be getting out there the way it is. Like, and it's exciting. It's really cool. But it's all because of the fans. It really is. So love you guys, seriously. Yeah.
Any audience questions? Everybody's so shy all of a sudden. Yes, sir.
Shut up. I love this
Wow.
No. Let's see. If listen, if you guys continue to want more and you keep liking what we're doing, I would love to keep making these. But I say that I don't want to go too far to the point where the well runs dry. No, not to say I love, you know, the franchises that go up to fucking number 10. I love them. I watch them all the time. But me personally, being the writer, like I don't know if our kill scenes and things we do, they're so big, and how many ways can you hang somebody upside down and cut them in half? So at some point, I feel like we're not going to be able to keep hitting that.
Well, now that we think about it.
So we'll see, but I'm pretty sure there will be at least one more.
So we all know that Terrifier 2 is looming, and we're all looking forward to it. And I know we have something special for the audience here coming up, but before we get to that, real quick, I have one follow-up to the crowdfunding question. When you surpassed your goal to such a high degree, what did that open up for you in terms of what you could now do in the sequel that you weren't sure you were going to be able to do now that you had the funds for it?
Oh my God. I honestly don't think we would have been able, knowing what I know now looking back, I don't think we would have been able to shoot the movie that I wrote. Even when you find out like what we did, when you see the movie and you find out what the budget was, it's pretty unfathomable. I had the most amazing, dedicated crew. And this is just like a group of 8 people, really. I mean, there were days we had more people, there were days we had less, making this whole thing, building all of these sets, and just, oh my God, doing all the makeup. It was just me and basically my partner, Phil, who's not even a trained makeup artist. Like, I taught him on the set of part 1, and he just helped me every step of the way. So it was just amazing. Just like, I mean, we couldn't have built half of those things without that money. We couldn't. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's true, man. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Yes, sir. Back here.
Yes, we did. Yeah, some school locations. Yeah, probably some other little things. I think primarily we filmed part 2 in Canajoharie, upstate New York, which is in the middle of nowhere.
Amish country.
Yeah, a lot of this movie is in. We built sets for some of the main locations, so they're all in this big barn, which is just a giant, basically tin can with no heat or anything. Shooting, it was a nightmare, absolute nightmare, but.
Though I did get to scare some Amish people, so that was fun.
Nice.
You don't expect that driving down the road early in the morning in your little cart and stuff like that. You know, a car passes you by and there's a bloody clown going. I had so much fun doing that.
Oh, I love it.
And that's always fun for me. Anytime I'm driving around in public in that makeup, I just love to just like, when we stop at lights, just stare out the window at people and just be like, hi. I'm surprised I haven't been shot yet. So I got to be careful.
And or arrested.
Yeah.
I thought I saw another hand somewhere here.
Oh, that did remind me of something that did happen when we were filming in Staten Island. I thought was hysterical. I'm attacking one of my victims, and these people were pulling up for work, I guess, early in the morning, and this car is just coming up, and they stop, and they see me, and I'm just, I'm like, I just stare at the car, and the car just goes, pulls out, I'm like, hope the cops don't come.
It doesn't count if the cops don't show up at least once.
Oh, it's
That's
happened
the
in
rule
both.
I live
It's happened in
by.
both. It's happened in both.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. So we know we're on the right track when the cops show up, so.
Yes, sir.
The makeup for art was so transformative. Was there anyone on set that didn't see you initially that was actually genuinely terrified of you when you came out?
Oh my, well, what happens, which is funny, is because he's always the first person on set when we put the makeup on him. So he meets all the actors as Art the Clown. And what's weird, it's not, but he's this guy when you meet him, and he's not scary until we start rolling. So,
Hi, how are you doing? Which I kind of do sound like that when I have the teeth in my mouth, because I'm like, how are you doing there? I'm Art Clown.
yeah.
I sound like Brack.
So what's really crazy is they get to know him for a month as Art, and then they'll see him like, a year later at the premiere or something, be like, oh my God, that's you? Like, that's wild.
Yeah, I've gone up to people and like, I'm talking to them and like, who are you? I'm like, it's me, Art. They're like, oh my God! Though I did have a fun moment of my first night filming for part 2. I mean, they had already seen me, like Lauren and Kaylee, who are two of our main characters, especially Lauren. But they were just in the makeup trailer talking and stuff like that, and I just stood outside the window of the door, and I just stared through the window making a face, and I was just waiting. I was so patient. I probably waited like 5 minutes for them to turn around, and they turn around and see me, and they just scream bloody murder. And I'm like, welcome to Terrifier 2! And I would do that occasionally to Lauren on set because she has a fear of clowns, and she'd just be talking to somebody, and I would just sneak up behind her and just stand there and just stare at her and then she would turn around and just see me right in her face. And I was really risking my life because she like teaches kickboxing and stuff like that. So I am amazed she did not kick my ass once. So, but you got to risk things for the scare.
Sure. Any other questions? Horror fans all get so shy all of a sudden sometimes. I don't understand.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Security, remove this man.
Part 5?
Anybody? Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Pizzeria is the part one.
Definitely Pizzeria was the favorite
by
place.
far.
Because it was heated and we had running water. And
free pizza.
Wonderful pizza, food.
That was
good. Great. Least favorite? Oh God, that warehouse.
The whole warehouse.
That warehouse in Trent, New Jersey. That place was just nasty. I mean, that bathroom you see in there, not the bathroom in the pizzeria, but the other bathroom when she goes in there. That's exactly how it looked. That whole entire building was exactly that. None of that was set dressing. That place was disgusting. Like when I'm coming off the floor with the skin and stuff like that, I came up off the floor the first time and I was just covered in black. I don't know what was on that floor. Probably the cure for cancer or something. I don't know. But my God, that place was disgusting. There was like used condoms on the ground in there. It was gross.
No, that place was what you see.
It was gross, but it worked well for the atmosphere.
Yeah, it was great. And of course, no running water and no heat and the middle of winter. And that's the way we work. That's the way we work.
We had a little porta potty outside, and that's what sucked was like the night when I wore the Buffalo Bill costume. I had to like get dressed.
Oh yeah, we'd have to get buckets of water, and where we could wash our hands and wash. Like imagine filming a horror movie with no running water. I mean, you can't even. It's disgusting.
It's miserable when you're covered literally from head to tail in blood, and you have to take a horse bath with your just bottled water and like paper towels. And this room was also weird because like the guy that I guess owned the building, he's like an older rotund man, and he's in all these photos with his shirt off with all these young buxom blondes and stuff like that. I'm like, what is this? This is like, this is creepy. And I'm like, I don't even feel like I should be taking my clothes off in here. Just like, yikes. It's like stuff.
That's indie filmmaking, folks. No fancy trailers, none of that.
It's like, this is wow.
All right.
This is where I die.
So, Ty, we'll take one last question. No.
Yes, there's going to be a part 5 now.
You, yes.
Oh, definitely the hacksaw scene. Yeah.
I also...
I'm sorry?
Actually, I really enjoy... I love the hacksaw scene, but I had more fun doing the decapitation. I thought that's a fun decapitation, just turning him into a human Pez dispenser and then, like, kicking the head away and stuff like that. Plus, it's also kind of cool because a lot of people don't realize it, but Mike Levy and Jason and Steve, they're the Fuss and Lens guys. They're the guys that basically started the whole entire scary clown out in public craze back in like 2014.
Yeah, the Staten Island clown.
Like his Staten Island clown. And so that was kind of cool that I'm killing the Staten Island clown on screen. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Before we get to our clip, for both of you, could you describe Terrifier 2 in one word? Go.
Epic.
Gutsy.
Nice. All right, a round of applause for these guys. And we are in luck because we have a very special clip for you guys. This is an exclusive as far as I know.
Yeah, it's exclusive. I would ask you guys, please don't film this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's have some courtesy, no phones, no sharing on social media or anything. Thank you. All right.
This is straight from my OnlyFans page, so.
All right, well, I don't know if there's anything we can do about the lights in here. Okay.
Turn out that light!
Little Bugs Bunny reference.
All right. We're holding. So just while we're waiting for that, you guys just premiered at Fright Fest in the UK, right?
We did. Unfortunately,
Very cool.
we didn't get to go there, but...
That's what killed the Queen.
Oh, my God.
Ooh. Wow. You heard it here, folks.
Too soon?
Oops.
There goes our UK fan base.
Yep.
It's okay. She's a distant cousin of mine. I could say
Whoops.
Oh dear, I've put myself in a bit of a mess now, haven't I?
So while we wait for the lights, we'll just have some awkward silence.
For the
And
Queen.
That won't be weird at all, but...
I will say, though...
I mean, I can keep going. I got questions, and then what will happen is the lights will drop right in the middle.
Charles is probably, oh, thank you. I finally have to work. Took me 73 years, but I finally got here.
Man finds job after trying for 73 years.
That's gotta suck. It's like I've been waiting so long.
So, David, that was your first, your first acting gig. What was it like just working with prosthetics like that, your first time out?
Well, that wasn't really that was my first, film gig. I've worked with prosthetics before.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a lot of children's theater growing up, and so I've worn lots of crazy makeup. And I also toured with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical, for 5 years. So I was the understudy for Stefan Carl, who was our Grinch. So occasionally I would have to don the green sometimes, and that. So I'm used to long makeup jobs and stuff like that. So, but I was very happy to have a makeup that would allow full maneuverability of my face and everything like that. I was very relieved about that because I wanted to be as expressive as possible, and it's like that's what's kind of sucked for a lot of those other silent killers because they're stuck behind a static mask most of the time. So that was a nice luxury to have. I
agree. So if anybody has any questions, we'll take them light switches apparently are hidden somewhere here in this place. I'm going to start breaking light bulbs, right? Yeah.
A lot of things. He's a huge culmination of a bunch of characters. Of course, I took bits and pieces from every horror icon that came before him. There's bits of Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers, Leatherface, Pinhead, Jigsaw, all those guys inside of art. But I also have an extensive background and love and appreciation of silent film actors and physical comedians. So, of course, Chaplin, Keaton, Marx Brothers, Mr. Bean was a big influence on me, Jim Carrey, Doug Jones, Lon Chaney, all those guys I put into art. And of course, my buddy Stephen Carl, who is our wonderful Grinch. He was Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town, if you're familiar with him. And he really helped me just bring my game to a new level because he fine-tuned everything I had because I never got to study under anybody for physical comedy. And he was professionally trained to that area, so he really took me aside. It's like, this is how you make this better and this better and this better. And I would even consult him when I was reading through the script and trying to come up with ideas for art before we started filming. And he gave me some great ideas and inspiration. So I just kind of blended all that together, both all that horror and great physical actors. And that's what brought art. Of course, also some Joker in there, too, because I've got to put a little bit of Mr. J in there. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. So,
all right. Well, folks, I do apologize. We should have thought about that. We can just roll it. I think we just roll the clip.
This is what it's like being on set for Terrifier.
Yeah.
So you just make do.
All right. Then, without further ado, folks, enjoy this exclusive clip from Terrifier 2. All right. So how about one more round of applause for David Howard Thornton and Damien Leone.
Thank you.
From Terrifier.
This is Ray Santiago, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Please watch, like, and subscribe, or else we'll find you and you'll die.